Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unity's official live stream. Today's theme is dots. We've brought on a game that isn't released yet, but they have been using dots to bring their game to life. The game is Cataclismo by Digital Sun. It's the same developers who've brought you the popular games Moonlighter and The Mage Seeker. The game's a technically rich and visually stunning base building RTS tower defense game. So we're going to take a deep dive into the editor to see how they pulled all of this off. How did dots enable their navigation and targeting logic? How did they build the structural stress system for the base building mechanic? And what went into the tech art side of things to get the game looking the way it does? We're going to answer all of those questions on this stream, but first, let's look at a trailer for Cataclismo.
Yeah?
But who is she, Victoria? What does it mean?
Someday we'll find out, little sage. For now, try to sleep. Remember, up here, you're safe.
Of course, we are safe.
This game is just beautiful, guys. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure to have you all. Let's do a quick round of introductions for everyone who's watching. Let's start with Javier.
Hi, Javier Villanueva or Happen, however you prefer. And well, I started in Digital Sun as an intern right off college. And I've been working, I worked a little bit on Moonlighter because when I actually started working, Moonlighter was almost already out. I worked on Moonlighter DLC, Moonlighter Mobile, and since then I have been working on Cataclismo as a programmer.
Such a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us. And then Adria below me.
Nice to meet you all. I'm Adria, also known as Wipex on the internet. I'm the tech director for Cataclismo. I started working for the company that later became Digital Sun. I think it was 2015, while I was still on college. We were like working on really not so spectacular games at that time, and we slowly built up, and we ended up changing to making our own games with Moonlighter. And since then, a lot has happened. We have been working for quite a while on Cataclismo, and I really hope you all like it.
I mean, I've already played it. I love it. I think it's incredible. And Adria, thank you so much for joining us. And Manel.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a technical artist at Digital Sun Games. I've been working there for almost 3 years. And I also started as an intern, thanks to a friend that told me about the opportunity.
Okay.
And I've worked as a technical artist in The Mage Seeker and now in Cataclismo.
And this game looks so incredible, and there's some really smart tricks that went into it, so I can't wait to dive into the tech art stuff. I think we're going to go dots first, get into tech art stuff after. So for everybody who's interested in that as well, make sure to stick around all the way to the end of the stream to hear more about the tech art stuff. Idria, you gave us a bit of a an idea of how the studio formed, starting from college. But I'd love to get like a deeper dive into just the history of the studio and how you all met and how you said you started in college. What were the little games you were working on, maybe, and then we'll look at the big releases that you've put out since then.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I think that's Happen, who has more about this section, but sure. I can also talk about it. We were like making games for for clients on on demand, and we were also already using Unity for that because it was at that time the best tool we could find, and it was also really easy to get into and multi-platform, and it was like a progress where we learned how to make games while making games, because that's the best way of doing that. And with the income we got from working that, we made Moonlighter, which is like the first big title and the first title about that Digital Sun Games released.
And Moonlighter is like a game where you're running a store, but you're also doing some dungeon crawling and collecting resources and bringing stuff back to your store, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, beautiful game.
Like this, the dual cycle.
Right. And so where did it go from there after the Moonlighter launch? I don't know if Javier, if you want to go into that, or Adria, feel free to jump in at any point. Yeah.
Well, since Moonlighter was a very big success as a game, it sold way more than we were expecting, thankfully.
For sure.
And that allowed us to actually stop developing software for third parties, which is what Adrian was talking about with those little not so great games. I was still proud of them though.
Yeah.
Start somewhere.
Yeah. What? Sorry?
You have to start somewhere.
Yeah, sure. And with that it allowed us to pay the bills while we were making what we really wanted to make. Yeah. And then, thanks to the success of Moonlighter, we were able to stop doing those things and start working exclusively on our own games, our own projects that we like and love. And after that, after Moonlighter, Riot got in contact with us with the Riot Forge branch they were trying to make games is inspired when situated in the Runeterra, I think it's called, and not a big League of Legends guy universe, and they contact us because they played Moonlighter, they liked it a lot, so they wanted to work with us. They wanted we made a game with them, and the Silas idea came up, and the Mage Seeker was born. Well, was a slow, like 3 or 4, I don't recall now, years process, but the Mage Seeker was eventually born from that, in which you play as Silas, the guy with
I think we have some footage of Mage Seeker as well. Let's put that up while you. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, because in the game you play as Silas, and he wants to take revenge with the Demacia city, I think it's called, because they are against magic, and he has been imprisoned because he's a mage, and you play as him trying to overtake Demacia and start a revolution. And after that, we are now here. We are close to publishing Cataclismo finally.
Yeah.
And as I just said, we hope people give it as much love as they have given to our other projects.
And it's so interesting to see the evolution, because you started with like this pixel art aesthetic, and then transition to an entirely new aesthetic for this game. I see some like color palette similarities between Moonlighter and Cataclismo, and I think that's very interesting, and I think we can dive into that. But I'd also love to hear about other inspirations for Cataclismo that came from outside of your own studio, because clearly from my conversations with you before this, you mentioned how like there were other games that inspired the development of this one. So if you want to dive into that.
Yeah, of course. We got inspired not only by video games, but also by real Lego pieces. Okay. But they are some of our inspirations, and they are billions. I think that's most obvious one. Games like Stronghold, Kingdoms and Castles, and games like that. And
Rated E for
we just
everyone.
wanted to translate that feeling of being able to build your thing and withstand the attack of enemies, in which in our case are horrors, but to build your thing, to manage it, and to really feel that fortress, that castle, it's your own. It's the thing you build. You wanted to do it.
And it really does, because in this game, like, where in our other RTS games, you're building entire structures or entire walls. In this game, like you said, you're really building piece by piece by piece. So your character is all over it. The blueprints are entirely your own. And then, yeah, maybe you can give us a synopsis of the game itself and like where you landed.
Yeah. Well, okay. Cataclismo is like, when you were playing with Legos and you build your things and you start making stories in your head about how somebody attacks that structure, some story happens. Well, we thought, okay, let's try to put this in a game. So Cataclismo is, you are in a medieval environment. You have horrors that come at night and try to kill you. So why not you build a fortress to stand that? Okay, you need to build like walls so units can go over them. And by go, we mean that they have to have a stair to be able to climb to that wall. Yeah. So units can be positioned there and fight against the horrors that try to destroy your castle. So yeah, it's kind of like an RTS, because you also have like management to manage your fortress by gathering resources and spending things wisely, positioning units in their optimal spots and everything. So I'd say that's more or less the game.
I really love the path system, and like the fact that you force players to think when they're building about the paths. It really changes how you approach the building. Like, gives you a reason to place the buildings in specific positions. I think at one point I had like a lumber yard, and you have to create a seamless path from the lumber yard to your castle. And I also needed to build houses. And so I built houses between the lumberyard and the castle, and I had the troops walking on top of the houses to make it to the castle, and I built bridges and a system to make that work. And I was like, okay, that was entirely up to me. It felt so custom. It felt like my personality is there in the city. So yeah, it's so cool. I really encourage people to try the demo, which you've kindly like put up on Steam, and we're dropping links to the game in the chat. So after the stream, wishlist it and download the demo and give it a try. It's so fun.
And send us whatever you make on the demo, because we are looking at the Steam page, and we really like seeing whatever strange contraptions people come up with. We saw,
where can they share it?
Yeah, we saw someone who was trying to make the walls with shacks, with the houses.
Okay.
And that doesn't really work as a strategy, but I think it's a really fun idea.
Yeah, that's cool. Like just building them and then building on top of them
to
have more walls. Yeah. But the problem is, the second those get destroyed, you run out of population. So
exactly. Yeah,
it wouldn't be my strategy.
Comes down very fast.
Exactly. Where can people share their contraptions? Would that be on like your Discord or?
Well, yeah, we have a Discord server. We can share it probably, and we also have the Steam work page. And
perfect. And so yeah, the game is looking beautiful as it is now, but it didn't, like, of course you had to build some prototypes to get it where it was. It'd be great if you could share with us a bit about that journey.
Yeah, okay, so this is the first diorama we made. This was like step of, okay, now we know the kind of game we want to do, and we want to explore how we want it to look like. So this is a very early approach of the artistic style I wanted to pursue. And I think that as in the trial commission that we managed to get pretty close to it. We're very proud of it. But yeah.
And this is in Unity?
This is
in Unity.
I remember that at the time when we got like this diorama set up, which looked like really good for that moment in time. You'll see the gameplay prototype that was when we had you will see the gameplay prototype that we had at the same time as this diorama. I remember that I felt like, how are we gonna do this? but I think we managed to get.
Okay. I mean, doing this in isolation is so useful because it's like setting it as a goal. You don't have to worry about how it interacts with the gameplay, but it gives everyone a direction, right? And I think maybe this is like maybe people underestimate the power of like an art gym or an art block. Yeah, this is beautiful. The game looks even better than this now, even though this looks so good. So I guess you were just posing the characters and pieces, and like you didn't even probably have the animations at this point. Wow.
Maybe the fire flickering and a bit of. I think that there was like a rain shader on the camera, but no, this was like only diorama.
Okay, great. And when you were doing this, like I said before, your previous games were pixel art. Did the pixel artists on your team just learn 3D modeling, or were they already 3D modelers? Or did you hire 3D modelers to join the team?
It was like a bit of everything, I'd say. While we started Cataclismo, we were still working on the Mate Seeker. So a lot of the people who were already great at pixel art were working on Mate Seeker, and Cataclismo was like a really small team since the beginning. And we kind of learned alongside it. And we also hired some really amazing people who are really talented on 3D work. But I'd say that it was omnidirectional approach.
So a bit of everything, right? And then what I also love about this game is like the concept art. Not just the concept art, but the illustration. It's almost like a comic book with the way the trailer, the cinematics are, and the way the story is told. And I think it's very effective because it's like it's blended into the gameplay. It doesn't pull you out of it completely, but it's kind of blended in. It's a very unique approach as well. But I digress. Let's look at the next prototype for the gameplay one.
The team did like an amazing job on.
Yes, they really
that
did.
part.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the prototype you're talking about. Looks a bit different.
Looks just slightly worse, as you can see.
What you see on the ad versus what you get.
Yeah.
Well, this is I think I just said that it was more or less the same time that the diorama that you just seen. It's an early prototype in which you can start to see the basics of the game, moving units, building things, building pieces, etc. And fun fact is that the very big thing that's in the middle of the scene, the one that's right on off screen, is the actual core placeholder. And it was stuck in the project by a very, very long time, to the point that when we actually placed the real building, the final building, we kind of missed it. In fact, seeing it now, it just, to me, it gives kind of nostalgia. Because
yeah, for sure. Yeah, we had it on the real game for way too long, probably.
Okay. You only like modeled the castle like properly later.
Yeah, because it was like the stronghold, which is like the centerpiece of the map. So we needed to solve pretty much everything else before we were able to make it.
That's fair. And here, what are you exploring in the prototype? I see there's some path systems. You already have the path system worked out, but it's done in a more of a grid fashion. Did this grid fashion like maintain? It's like is that still there, or did it change a bit?
Well, at this point in time, I'm pretty sure we were using like vanilla Nav Mesh.
Okay.
In fact,
Unity's Nav Mesh, yeah.
Yeah, and Unity's agent. In fact, you can see that the path preview is like clipping through terrain, because the information you can access about the corners are only the real corners. It's not taking into account like the height that's solved by the agent.
Right.
But we didn't. I think we didn't care about that at that point in time.
Yeah,
we did later.
Yeah. There's no need to like worry about every aspect of it right from the start. You weren't like polishing it. You were trying to get the idea across, right? So you're just testing the overall loop here. I
we
guess?
wanted to see if the game was fun.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And was it this prototype that made you realize that this is okay? We have something here.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Castle, Cataclismo, sorry. Castle is like the internal
Code
name. Yeah,
Nice.
we used for the development. So if I call it that,
I'll excuse you.
thank you. So I think that Cataclismo was fun from a really early stage
Nice.
because, I mean, building your own thing and protecting it from monsters, even if it's on a really early stage, is really fun.
Yeah. It's okay. That's good. I mean, that's very motivating for it to be fun right away, and then just everything else is just like
Yeah, for sure.
icing, just cherry on top. You know, that's great. And then I guess there was another prototype after this one, right? Oh, there we go. Oh, the art starts to come in a bit.
Yeah, we have trees already.
Trees, little characters, little orange characters.
I think that at this point we already had enemies, but they were like the capsule enemies.
Okay.
Yeah, it can
And
be
the first
seen by
one, there were
end
no
of the
enemies. The
video.
one we just saw.
No, in that one, I think it was only castle building, structure building, and resources and economy.
Oh, okay. So there's no threat in that one. It was more of a city builder, and then you're like, okay, here's the real game. Oh, there
Sure.
they are. I see them coming.
Yeah, these
Oh,
are like the pawns that gather resources.
Oh, I see. So not the enemies quite yet, but you know, it's got some atmosphere to it already. It's looking good. Like at this point, you can see where the direction is going.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And was Dots integrated into the project at this early point, or not yet? Is this when you
No.
decided, hey, I think we need to start using Dots?
I think that it was a bit later.
Mhm.
We really added, when we started development of Cataclismo, that was still on a very early stage. And it wasn't until 2021 when we integrated it, because we were trying to solve a very complex problem. We'll talk more about later.
Okay, got it. Yeah. And I guess for Dots, you just used Burst and Jobs, right? So I guess maybe for people to know, a lot of people wonder, should I use Dots? Should I not use Dots? Why for your team did you choose to use Dots?
Well, as I said, we were trying to solve a very complex problem, which was pathfinding, which is usually the problem to solve when you are trying to move as many units as you can and make an impressive game. At that time, we were using Unity experimental pathfinding with a custom agent for enemies, but we felt that we were able to what we were able to get wasn't impressive enough, and it was lacking a bit of that swarm behavior that we think we got now. So we implemented flow fields with using dots. It's a 2D version or pseudo 2D version of flow fields, but we use it for for the enemy units, and well, we added it and it worked really well from the beginning.
Oh wow. Okay, and maybe we can like start to actually look at some of this stuff. So we'll share. Manal, I believe you're going to be sharing your screen, and we can actually visualize some of this to make it easier for the audience to understand.
Sure.
Yeah.
We were also discussing on why we chose to use. We only used dots of jobs and burst compiler. We didn't use the entity component system. And that's because at that point it was still too early on the timeline. We didn't know when it would be like ready, and we were already like a bit into development. So changing the the configuration and changing like everything around. When you use the entity component system, you really need to make the game for the entity component system, and everything
Right.
needs to work
Foundational.
for that. Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Understood.
on the other hand, jobs and burst are like really easy to plug into and can solve you a problem that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do in a traditional manner.
Yeah, and so there's different elements to dots. You don't have to use every aspect of it. Some things can be
Exactly.
plugged into your project later, which maybe some people are not aware of. They think they have to go straight from the beginning with every feature, but actually it's not that way. And so here's a perfect example of that for the custom navigation for the enemies. So maybe we can you can show us the visuals for that, how that looks.
You can show like exactly.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's like on green is the secondary targets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the flow field system is like centered around the stronghold,
Yes.
or in some maps around some key building that you need to defend.
Got it.
In most of them, it's the stronghold, and it creates like a flow field of directions from every inch of the map towards the center. That works instead of doing a path, instead of calculating 100 or 1,000 paths for 100 or 1,000 enemies, you can just solve it for every tile of the map toward a single goal. That's
Right.
a much better approach for a game like Cataclismo. And using dots, we can solve it in real time. And we can also use like the flow system for aggro and to reproduce, to mimic like a Void's group behavior. And I think it works really well for that.
And are there like different priorities? You said it solves in real time. So let's say you have some enemies who are following this flow field, and then there's your own units that appear next to them. I'm guessing that flow will change for them to start
Exactly.
to
If you
towards.
spawn some enemies, you can see how they interact with the flow fields, and the
Yeah.
flow field reacts to their presence.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, at some point, I'd like to explain the journey we had for the agent navigation.
Yeah, please.
If you want to spawn a few archer units, we can show it.
It's great that we can see this in real time. This is so awesome.
Yeah, and that
Oh, I see. The
there
flow
you
is
can
now.
see exactly.
It's like
Yeah, as I said,
gravitational
like-
field around each thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The green area is the secondary target
Mm-hmm.
or aggro, and the blue one is the main one, which extends all over the map.
You're right.
Yeah, in this scene, all the enemies are like already going to the stronghold because it's more or less test scenes what will become the creative mode. So everything is already attacking you. You have infinite resources, and it's a really good place to test things out, test things out and try things.
So you had this test scene ready to always check if the flow field is behaving the way you want it to behave.
Yeah, I have like a few test scenes with labyrinths and
Oh, okay.
a lot of noise on the ground so that we can stress it. But
Yeah.
this one is
Push it to the
like,
limit.
yeah, this one is prettier. Yeah,
Okay.
and on blue you can also see like the borders of the map, like the traversability for the flow field system. There are like some ramps that don't work with the geometry and the constraints we decided to have, since blocks are one by one by one.
Yeah.
We can have 45-degree ramps. That makes it so that or agents which can walk up slopes of up to 60 degrees. Well, it makes it so that there are ramps that can't exist because you can't mathematically fit one of those on some of the corners.
Yeah.
Some of the configuration. It would be too steep. So, well, for curved stairs, we kind of do a trick, which I can explain later. But for the environment, we just mark that as a cliff. And since it's only changing when the level is generated, we can do like a very complex and very slow process, which we only do once. And we use that to calculate the flow fields every single time later.
Okay. So there's something that happens at the start that is then
exactly. We calculate the traversability for the map. And after that, we also get like the main targets, which in this case is the stronghold.
Okay.
And on real, we also set like values like traversability cost for each tile, which usually is low, but when you get near a wall or you get like near the trees or some of those situations, it gets a bit higher so that the enemies try to avoid that part of the map.
And so when you were using Nav Mesh, you were talking about the journey, right? So what did you find at first that what really wasn't working with the Nav Mesh that you needed to go off, use dots and build this system?
Yeah, if you select like these agents, the archers, and set them on funnel mode, I will show it. Yeah. On the very beginning, on those prototypes we saw, we were using like the vanilla Unity agent. Yeah. But that had a problem where enemies. We needed enemies. We basically needed to have like a weird wall duality, where enemies thought that they could go through walls, but in reality they couldn't. At first, we tried to solve that with using nav links and dynamically placing them over the map. We also used links for a while so that units could like jump on top of blocks because we didn't have stairs at that time. But that didn't really work once we got like really big. It wasn't as scalable, and we ended
optimization wise.
Yeah, we ended up switching to using areas and Nav Mesh volume modifiers to identify the walls as walls, so that and making a custom agent so that we could have different layers for pathfinding and the actual navigation. That way we were able to have enemies that thought that could go through walls, but once they reached the wall, they didn't clip through it. Because if you only rely on physics for that, and the frame rate drops like a lot,
I see.
You tend to get some enemies that slip through, and that's just not good.
No. Yeah, it's not behaving in a predictable way. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that made us make our own agent and use the experimental pathfinding tools, which work like really well. Even at that time, I was surprised on the performance that we got from that. We also tried to make some custom solutions. We tried some plugins, but we ended up defaulting to the Nav Mesh tools because they work the best.
Oh, amazing.
I have to say. And that really allowed us to move a lot of units, not as many as now, but that really allowed us to like move a few hundred units at a time while not having performance problems.
Right.
But it had the issue that all of the units, like once they turned a corner, all of them were walking on the same path, and they were like doing a line towards the objective, because that's how pathfinding works.
Yeah,
It's
and that's a bit
optimizing-
unnatural. Like, there's not a school line; it's an army,
exactly.
right? So you need them to group together.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
at the beginning, we tried to modify. Since we had an agent and we had the control to make whatever we wanted, whatever fit the gameplay mechanics best, we tried to do our own strengthening of the path, which is a thing you can do if you are using the Nav. Well, it's a thing you must do if you are using the version we were using about Nav experimental tools. You get like a couple examples, and we heavily relied on that at that time because we didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
But we were able to get it up and running pretty easily.
Oh, was that through like reverse engineering the samples and understanding them?
Yeah,
or
well,
like...
we found. I'm not sure if it's like readily available right now, but we found a scene with an example about exactly that, and we got like a
great.
path in the same manner we already knew.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you get you make when you make a pathfinding request to the experimental pathfinding system, you get the solved path, but you mainly have like the Nav Mesh polygons, and after that you need to look at each polygon and solve where's the direction you need to take, where are the corners you need to take to reach the destination. So we thought about making a funnel-based path following system, which we can try. It's been a few years since we used it, but we can try setting up these archers with the funnel-based system, and that way, you can also paint like the tiles on.
Nav Mesh?
Yeah, no, like the Nav Mesh polygon painter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you do with a funnel-based approach is that you are able to walk the whole funnel instead of just walking towards a fixed point.
Okay.
And you are like walking between two gates. In an example where you have a really big tile size, or hopefully only one tile, that's like the tile they are on at that time, at that moment.
When you say tile size, are you talking about this?
Yeah, well, it's the tile size configuration you set up in the Nav Mesh or the Nav Mesh surface.
Got it.
And that's when there are structures nearby, you will see that this tile gets distorted and adapts around those structures.
Okay.
Yeah, and in this case, the unit is able to work between these two gates that are the I think they were called gates internally. Well, you are able to walk between these two gates, and that makes like a group of horrors able to influence, to have influences between themselves with voids,
Okay.
and have like a more natural flock-like behavior.
So each unit, each horror has like a space or like a tile around it that is the void that the other units want to avoid, basically, and just as they're moving through things. Or
at that point in time, we had an implementation of the voids system, which I'm not sure if you are familiar with it.
The void? No, not completely. No.
Okay, if you select a unit, we can show it if you want. A bit down there. Yeah. Here you can see that you have like a separation influence, an alignment influence, and a cohesion influence. That what that makes is you try to be separated from other entities because you want to maintain a personal space, but since you are a group of birds or a group of monsters, you also want to stay together because that's what nature makes too. And you also want to look in the same direction as all the other ones around you, because that makes you look like a group, and it makes you. It's based on how birds and fish move, and that worked for a while, but it was too performance demanding. This with the funnel-based system, and we ended up only using this like very minorly for our own agents, which it wasn't, which is the units that it wasn't designed for at the beginning. So for enemies, once we saw that this really didn't cut it, because it worked much better. But if you want to have like faster Nav Mesh recalculations, you really need to tweak the tile size for that, because otherwise you have like huge tiles that waste a lot of performance when you have small modifications inside of them.
Right.
So we ended up trying to find a better way for enemies. And we did a lot of research on that. I remember I saw a video interview with the guys from Planetary Annihilation, and they talked about how they solved their pathfinding there with using a kind of flow fields based approach, and that's more or less what gave us the idea to try to implement our own flow fields.
Okay. Cool. And then someone's gonna watch this in the future, and then
hopefully they come up with
an idea as well,
an even crazier idea.
And then there's also you're talking about the relationship between the units, but there's also targeting. How did you pull that off? Like, is that like part of the same system, or is that its own thing?
Yeah, we have like both targeting and the dynamic aggro. Do you want to go to targeting first before we discuss the aggro, or
no? Let's go. I guess aggro makes more sense because you aggro before you target something. So let's go aggro first. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Yeah. If you spawn a cannoneer, we will be able to see it better. Yeah. This works with the secondary aggro. We talked about the secondary targets we talked about. A unit has like this green influence that only reaches like secondary targets only affect a small part of the map, but if it gets, and it only affects you if it gets close enough. But if it gets close enough, you will go towards it, and that will be your main objective. So that allows us to have different units with different influence areas, and also have gameplay mechanics influence the size of that area. For example, if you have, it's very frequent to have a group of enemies just outside your influence area for the play unit, and as soon as you start shooting, they all know where you are, and they come towards you in a group.
I see.
Here it wasn't reaching to the top of the run before, but once this guy starts shooting, they all will come
Okay, so there's different
towards
ways to
him.
trigger it. There's the distance, but then there's also like being triggered by getting hit, which is natural, of course. You know, if you get
Yeah.
hit, you're gonna wonder who hit you. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And it also comes down with time.
it comes down, sorry, with time.
Yeah, it comes down to the base with a bit of time, because if you stay quiet for a while, it will go to the baseline.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah. Anything else we want to touch on this?
Well, I have a couple insights on how we are. Well, flow fields or flow fields is like a 2D or pseudo 2D approach. We consider the cliffs and the unwalkable spaces as that they are obstacles, but in reality, our flow fields is only a 2D, which for a 3D game sounds a bit strange,
Right.
but we kind of get the 99% of the behavior we want with only a fraction of the cost, because we are only calculating a slice of the problem. I remember we did some tests with a 3D flow fields using dots, because we thought this works instantly. It's not showing up on the profiler because it's on the secondary threads.
Yeah.
But we thought it's not showing up only on the profiler. Let's try to make this a 3D flow fields and try if that if that works. And it kind of did, but it probably was too much for such a large map.
Oh, okay. Wait,
Yeah.
so too much in what sense?
Well, too much. The calculation was like too big, even with that, because when you have, if you have, well, right now maps are a bit smaller than what they were on the
Originally.
on this tech test.
Yeah.
At that point in time, we were trying to solve the problem for the worst case scenario, and we didn't want to compromise on a given height. Now, right now, I think you can build up to about 100. It depends on the map, but you can build up to about 100. And if you have 100 layers that are interconnected, that's like 100 times more expensive than just solving one layer.
Right. Of course. And so you don't need the arrows to be pointing up at an angle
exactly.
or anything like that.
And you don't really know, and you don't really need it. Exactly.
And how's it handling the moments in between, like when you're walking up a ramp, or like you said, there's the curved staircase situation that you said you'll get into later. How's it handling those seemingly 3D moments of navigation?
Since enemies don't really need to walk on structures, we just consider structures as obstacles. That means that if we have a staircase laying on its side, it will be the same as if it was a wall for an enemy. But on the other hand, if you have a staircase that's like going in the same direction as the baseline flow field is, enemies will be able to walk over that. So, for example, if you manually lay a road for your units, which isn't a great strategy, because you already have like these really pretty gravel roads.
Yeah.
But if you do, it wouldn't be a really good strategy to defend your castle, because enemies will just be able to go over them as your units do. They'll probably get interested in some of them and start like
Attacking.
breaking everything up.
Yeah.
But they can theoretically do that. But if you place like structures on its side, enemies will just consider it an obstacle and either walk around it, because it increases a bit the cost of reaching their end goal, or go there and attack it.
And so then the navigation of your own units up the steps, oh, there you go,
Exactly.
is handled by the classic navigation mesh.
That's using
So you're layering
everything.
both.
Exactly. We are
System.
using
Yeah.
flow fields for enemies, and we are using the experimental pathfinding with a custom agent for our own units.
Okay. And then how is the ramps, the natural terrain ramps, being handled for the enemy units as they walk up
Yeah, exactly.
the mound?
Ramps. Well, this is a really complex topic in reality. Like solving ramps for a 3D environment with a 45-degree creates. I think I already said that. But it creates situations, it creates configurations that are too steep to be walkable. And in those cases, we just make a hole in the flow fields and avoid it, walk around it, because it's like if it was a wall or if it was a tree or a 2-meter ramp. But in the other cases, you have ramps that, if you have ramps that match the direction of movement, for example, if you have the most basic case is a straight ramp going to a cardinal direction and changing just 1 in height. In that case,
just like
in that case, you are coming from an omnidirectional place to another omnidirectional place, and
like this to that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's 1 in height separation, so it always works. But when you start to get like more complex scenarios, like the ones Malinelli is showing, or especially in the later maps, it gets more complicated. The terrain, you tend to get situations like this one shown here.
There. Yeah.
Or this one, where you really need to look at what direction the ramp is going, if it's single direction or at a slight angle going up or internal or external. So you really need to think when connecting, especially when connecting ramps with other ramps, you really need to see that each ramp is compatible with the other ramps that are around. This is a pretty complex task, but the good thing is that since we are not able to modify terrain, we are only doing it on startup. And once we have that, which we call that with plus the mist and the trees and the 2-meter walls, that is what we call the traversability.
We have one time.
Yeah, we get a traversability field. We also get a cost field for how much does it cost to go through this tile. For example, a regular tile may cost like 2, but a tile near a wall or near a tree may cost something like 7, I think it was. That's so that units tend to avoid getting into complex situations or getting into corners too much, and they really try to move towards open spaces and towards your...
So they avoid high-cost areas. There's a logic there for them to avoid high-cost areas.
Exactly.
Or at least to group up in high-cost areas. They're not all grouped up in a corner or something like this.
Exactly.
Nice.
We have that also as a base layer, but then we also have like the layer for the main objectives, which in this case is the stronghold, and that's also like always there. But aside from that, we have all the enemy units which are creating congestion on the map. We have human units which are creating like secondary targets, and we also have like the walls, the stone walls, and the wood walls, which are also creating static congestion modifiers that enemies try to avoid, but just it it's I think it's like a really delicate balance between making smarter enemies and making unfair enemies. If you made like walls that didn't work as walls because enemies all went through a really small hole, well, it wouldn't be efficient for enemies because they won't be able to go through at the same time. But it would also feel like somewhat unfair because they aren't like PhD graduates. They are like they are mindless monsters that only want to
Let's follow a flow field and have
up to your
one
neck. Yeah.
job. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we kind of have all that, and with that we calculate an integration field, which is like from the main objective and towards it, what is the cost? Let me rephrase it in it's a bit complicated. It sounds complicated, but in reality it isn't as complicated. So we have the main objective, we have all the cost and all traversability, and from that you kind of add up the cost that it takes to reach there, and you expand the field until you run out of tiles to explore.
Got it.
You do that for the main field. You do a similar thing for secondary objectives, and congestion and everything else influences that calculation. But once you have that, you add it up, and you kind of get what you are seeing now.
Okay, so there's constantly calculations happening every frame, and also for people who haven't played the game, you can like literally pause and build structures in the middle of like combat. So like you can build more zones, and so obviously those flow fields need to recalculate. So this was like necessary for your game.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Well, you can do it without pausing.
Even without pausing, you can just drop stuff in.
There's some. I've seen some people who tries to play without pausing at all. I think that's really hard.
Yeah.
But go for it. If someone manages to beat the game without pausing it, I'll be very proud.
No pause, any percent speed run. Are people always trying to trap the monsters in like prisons?
Yeah, probably. They won't work really well if they aren't high enough.
Right.
You can also try to kite enemies with the arches and the dynamic influence area.
Yeah.
That works also really well for small groups of enemies. But once you start to get like really large swarms coming at you, it gets a bit unmanageable, and you need to think more tower defense strats rather than RTS.
Got it. So if you understand the flow field, but at a certain point, you just gotta kill them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can try delaying the problem, but it won't come. It won't go away on its own.
At some point. Yeah. And I see here the stress system with the stone flashing. So maybe that's a good segue to talk about that system and the structures and
for sure.
Just this concept in the game of layering your construction, and the higher you layer things, the more powerful they become. But then also the more enemies damage pieces of it, the more it starts to fall under stress. So that's just to set the stage for what you're about to jump into. Yeah.
That in reality, it's like two systems working in tandem. What you described, which for the player is seen as how a structure should work. And on the one hand, we have the robustness system, which we won't go into much detail today. And that's what makes walls strong. That's what gives them like more health and encourages you to build proper structures, like really high walls and really high towers, because they look cool. Exactly, that's like the tower level robustness.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we have
see it changing.
We have the stress system, which comes from it goes from the other direction, while robustness comes from the top and the how high can you build, and it propagates downwards. The stress system is the other way around. It starts from the bottom and you get to a point where you can build more.
Right.
You can try combining materials, because different materials have like different tolerances and they are like at different levels. You can build on top of ground as if it ground is like the baseline, but for example you can build wood on top of stone as if it was on ground, because wood doesn't weigh
as much as
enough
stone.
to affect.
Yeah.
Exactly, it doesn't affect the stress.
I see. And then if
that
the
also-
bottom structure gets damaged, how is that does it collapse the whole wall?
Well,
Or how is that?
depending, it depends on how you build. We can try setting up some structure. I think that you had a cool structure on blueprints.
Oh, nice.
I get the cool one.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. And I love this. This kind of reminds me of like the Tears of the Kingdom, if anybody's played it, where you can make a blueprint and just pop it together. And like in the middle, this is so useful in the middle of a fight if you need to build like a big wall system and you can just drop it. It obviously costs a lot of your resources, in-game resources. But this is just like such a fun.
This is one
mechanic.
one of the features we promised on the Kickstarter.
Oh,
And it's still a bit of a work in progress. I have a couple open tasks that still need to be solved, but hopefully they won't come up as a bug or something while we are showing.
okay.
But yeah, you can already see that it works really well. It allows you to rebuild structures easily, and yeah, add some horrors, and let's see how it falls.
Let's do it.
Yeah. With how this stress system works, it encourages you to like make an interconnected pattern on walls, because that way, if one of the bricks gets destroyed, the rest of the wall will be able to hold the structure up.
Got it.
While if you just put bricks on its side, one on top of the other, without interconnecting them, once the brick on the bottom dies, the whole column falls apart.
Got it.
So the stress system also, this is like the opposite example of what players really need to be making. But
So you mustn't just think like an architect. You also have to think like an engineer.
exactly,
when
yeah.
Working on this. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say that I contacted an architect friend on the very beginning,
Yeah.
and I tried to, while trying to find how to implement the stress system, but the ideas about like load and having like arch, we had ideas about trying to reproduce that, but it got too complex and to not game like.
Got it.
A
And you
simpler
simplified
system.
it to capture the concept, but
Exactly.
still be fun. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We tried.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's the process, right? Sometimes you go too far in one extreme and then you balance it
Exactly.
back out. Yeah. That's really cool. Well, I think we've covered that, right? The stress
pretty
system.
much.
Thanks for sharing that. And then
You're welcome.
what we're going to jump into next is talking about a bit about the level design tools and the technical art, but I want to give us a short 5-minute break. We'll come right back and dive into those subjects. We're going to talk about some of the visual inspirations, the lighting and the shading of the game. We're going to get a bit more visual, talking about the animations of the units, and the dressing up of the terrain and lighting. So stick around. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Go get some snacks, get some water, use the washroom to the audience, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes. All right? Thanks,
See you.
everyone.
See ya.
And we're back. Thanks everyone for waiting. So we just talked a whole lot about the dots integration for Cataclismo, flow fields, and stress systems. One thing we did miss though was targeting. So we're gonna cover that before we jump into all the tech art. So how targeting works for the units in the game. So let's just pick up right where we left off.
Okay, so I'll be the one explaining this part because
Great.
that's probably the motive I was brought into this project. So the problem arises that when we reach a point where we have like hundreds of enemies and tens or even hundreds of human units, well, they are trying to figure out which one they should hit. Horrors will try to hit a wall, try to hit a human, and humans will try to hit the best horror they can, even if it's closer or not. So we ran into the problem that handling that using, I think at we're using like physics faircast and everything, is just way too resources demanding, and we need to optimize that somehow. So that's the other part where dots comes in. What we basically did is that we kind of, what Adrià just explained with the flow fields, we divided the map in tiles, and we separated every horror to the tile it was in. We did the same with humans. We gathered info about which tiles are actually in range for the human units because they are the ones that can actually attack from a distance. And once all that data is laid out by the job system, that is running every frame, finding out which one is the target is the appropriate one for the unit. It's just a matter of a simple lookup to a table, to an array, or something. I don't know if Manel can show the horrors and the tiles they occupy, because we actually try to make a little visual demonstration here. So right now there are a lot of horrors, okay? And the problem is that if there's a human unit trying to attack them, it has to look for every horror that there is to know, first of all, if they are close enough for them to hit, and second of all, if they are visible. Because if, for example, we have a house or shack in the middle, in between a human and a horror, well, the human is obviously not going to be able to hit them because there's a house in the middle, and the arrows can't traverse it. So what we do is we first separate everything. We break down the problem, like this is showing how many arrows are in each tile, and if we spawn a human unit and let it be there, we'll be able to also see the tiles that human unit has in its actual range, the tiles that can be hit by that unit. And once we have all those calculations pre-made, it's really just a simple problem of matching every human with all the horrors that it can shoot, and later checking if those horrors are actually visible, because then again, there could be an obstacle in the middle.
True.
And once we've done that, human units can finally shoot, and horror units can actually decide if they want to attack a piece or if they want to attack the human that's close to them. And on top of that, there's also the problem of there's sometimes that you don't want humans to hit the horror that's more close to them. You want them to hit the horror that's more dangerous because, for example, you might have a strong wall that can withstand for a while lots of weak horrors hitting on it. But if a strong horror reaches it, it might break it very quickly. So you want humans to target the stronger enemy, while ignoring for a while the weaker ones. Here in the demonstration that's setting Manel, we see that there are two horrors, and if we spawn a unit there, we can make it choose if he wants to attack the weakest one. Well, he forgot to enable cheats there. He escaped.
Let me fix that.
It won't be for very long.
Yeah. But this might actually look like basic stuff, like it's normal, but under the hood, it's very expensive stuff to calculate, because you know, if you have hundreds of horrors, you have to check every single one of them to see which one is closer, which one can be hit, even if it's close enough, etc. So this is, I don't, Adrià correctly, but I think this is the most expensive jobs we have right now. because
I think that flow fields and targeting are like trying to fight for the
Most
for the
expensive
predecessor.
thing in the project. Yeah.
Yeah, and Nav Mesh, which
Yeah.
is also like using up all those extra cores. But dots and especially jobs on this case made us go from a system that was already implemented and kind of working, but really expensive, to almost free for the main thread, which is it's
Yeah.
what you want to do.
that's one of the coolest things from the dot system jobs. That's what we're using, is that all of that I mentioned, because well, on top of that, there's also the invalidated area, because you cannot build while there are auras nearby, and that is also handled by the targeting system, even though it's not actually targeting. And the cases like the cannons, where you throw a projectile that explodes, are also handled through targeting by making specific petitions in specific positions to be resolved on demand. So yeah, I don't know if Manel could show for the more tech interested people in the audience the actual workflow for the system that we have summarized in code, but it's actually quite a thing. I don't know if you can show it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is more or less what's happening on the thing. So
Some good commenting going on.
yeah, it's necessary when you do this kind of thing. But yeah, every point you see where two or more lines collide, it's actually two jobs that have to end so another one can take place. And if you can see in the right part, there's the last dot, and the three last jobs that executed are the ones that actually pick the targets for every unit. Everything that has before is just preparing data to be easily readable. And
What is the third one? Set target for area request. What is that one?
That one is what I said about the cannons. You see, if a cannoneer shoots one of the explosives and it's landing a point, we need to calculate targeting for that projectile.
Oh, true.
It's not a real unit. So what we do is we make a request to the system. So, okay, I need to find targets in this position for this range. And the system will execute, and the next frame you'll have the results for that request.
Yeah. Okay.
More or less, that's the whole system.
Very cool.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that for the flow field system, but it also has parts that can go in parallel, points where you need to wait for other jobs to finish their work, and you really need to the job system really makes a really complex problem much simpler.
Okay, by having things running parallel.
Yeah, it takes care of a lot of fluff for you.
Okay, amazing. Anything else to touch on with the targeting?
No, not really.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much I'm glad we did not miss that part. That was actually very interesting. And as promised before we went on the break, we will touch on the level design system. So there's actually something interesting happening here where you have the level design tools for you, like as a player when you're building, but then you're also opening that up. Is that correct? To the community?
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is like the internal tool we use to make the levels that you play. Okay. But one of the stretch goals for the Kickstarter is sharing a version of this tool with a lot of work on top of that, because we've already worked on this for a while. It's still a work in progress, and it's really hard to expose a tool that you initially made for yourself, but because you make lots of concessions and you hide things under the rock, and you explain to the level editor, to the level designer, what not to do and what to do. And once you need to communicate that to the player, it gets when you need to make something usable for the player, it gets much more complicated. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
if we'll be able to ship it on release. It may come down later down the line, but we are working on that.
Yeah, I can imagine like all the rules that need to be satisfied. Like you probably have to have a path. Something that came to mind to
Exactly.
me was like there has to be a path from where the horrors spawn to the base. You can't just
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
they can't just walk up. They
Yeah,
can't
to-
jump, right?
To finish a night, you need to kill all the horrors on the wave,
Yeah.
and if they can't reach you, you can kill them. So it's a bit of a
Game will just
stalemate.
freeze. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So that's really cool. Do you have anything you can show with how it works here? Or
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can show more or less what we have right now. So for the terrain editor is the base of like all the terrain that will be generated. So you have like brushes where you can paint the terrain, more or less.
oh, nice.
And we also have the mist, and you can set like, for example, globally to all the map. This will be the mist. Right now it's just purple, but
Yeah.
Then there's also, let me put some more terrain. We're here. It's also possible to put the resources like the wood, then stone, minerals. Basically, everything like we used internally.
Yeah.
That's what you can
I
do.
like how it's diagrammatic, but then it'll transform into the beautiful art.
Yeah, these models are
afterwards. Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
You can also set where the horrors will come from, the spawners, and resize them.
Oh, great.
And then, like, you can enter here the waves editor, which you will be able to set up waves of how many horrors will spawn, at
Wow.
what time, and all that.
This is like a whole other game mode in its on its
Yeah,
own.
Just the game making, yeah.
Yeah.
mode.
And basically, people will be able to make entire campaigns for each other. I think this will keep the community alive for a very long time to have a feature like this.
To have levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the yeah. And like once you build the terrain, you are able to go to the entity editor, which will actually like load the game in an editor state.
Yeah.
Okay.
It will take a bit.
No, it's fine. We've got time. Yeah, I remember
Gross.
being a kid and playing Might and Magic and spending hours and hours in the level editor, and I feel like
Yeah,
Yeah.
to have
Here
this
you-
it's the same in
amount of
Warcraft.
control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here you already calculated the very expensive traversability and that
Oh, yeah.
kind of stuff. So you can start making other cooler things.
Can you
So here's-
continue editing the level in this mode as well, or you have to do it
Yeah,
in the preview?
This is
Oh,
the
you
mode.
can.
Like once
No.
the terrain is done, like you can see it right here, how it generated.
Yeah.
And now you can actually place the units.
Oh,
Where the stronghold is, where the
got it. So the
Basic
first
units,
step was
initial
just
units.
for the terrain. Okay,
exactly.
Exactly.
cool. That's
You can
fun.
place like all the entities. There's also something really cool, and those are environment props,
Mhm.
which are like just decoration.
Oh, nice.
But I think it's really cool to have them available to the player.
That's so nice.
You can just
People are gonna
make,
go
like,
crazy with this.
Yeah.
I want to start jumping into this. This is so.
it's really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. You basically built the whole game, and now you're allowing everyone else to build the whole game alongside.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
You can make crazy stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with all the there are a lot of props.
You even
How
just
about-
become an environment artist, huh? You could just decorate the scene.
Yeah, like that.
That's so cool.
And then after like you've prepared all the scene and all the needed elements, the waves, the entities, you can even set the initial resources where
Mhm.
like when you start the level, then you can just hit play level, and it will go to a test of the final level that you've made.
This way you can check that everything is set up as you
As you wanted it.
expected and it works as, and this is the game.
That's awesome. So it already looks far along. I don't know when this is going to be ready, but it's looking good. It's looking good.
some bugs we need to polish and
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
user
of
experience stuff.
Yes.
Thankfully, it's behaving well. We haven't found many bugs, and we haven't seen any bug that I think of during this stream.
Okay.
So
That's a good start. That's a good.
Yeah.
I was praying.
That's fantastic. And okay, so we touched on the dots, the flow fields, level design, and just really excited to dive into the tech art as well. So maybe we can start doing that.
I'm going to
and
load.
we teased the inspirations for the visuals and all of that, and I know that, like I mentioned, how it kind of looks similar. In a way, it reminds me of Moonlighter, even though it's completely different. I'd love to hear more about that, like the visual inspirations when making the game.
yeah, the art director is David Aguado, which is the same that directed the art for Moonlighter.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it kind of has his personal touch,
Nice.
and it reflects. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's clear.
Hmm.
It's like an
Okay,
evolution.
About the tech art, I wanted to talk like right now. I wanted to talk about the shading, the real shading we have on the game.
Sure. Yeah.
So we have a toon shader working. That is just like working with a light ramp. It's like Wind Waker, for instance.
Yeah.
So when we select a unit, I will try here. Yeah. Besides all the classic texture and everything, we have the light ramp.
Yeah.
And this one will, like that's, when we have shadows, it will tell like at what point the shadow, like which color will it will have.
Okay.
It has like a sharp turn for, so the shadows aren't like smooth, but rather they like cut.
Yes.
And we also have
Hard line for the shadows.
yeah. The thing is, like, we have light ramps for lots of different stuff, like the horrors, the pieces, even the slopes of the terrain, and then also the cliffs and the terrain. So it's like very, very intricate, like all the different shades that we're throwing here. And we also have, for the pieces, there's something interesting that we have. And that is, if I go to this material, it was that at the start, we just had like the basic directional light, only one in the scene.
For the scene, yeah.
Yeah. And so, really, let me switch to the scene. I have to change here. Okay. So we had only one light, and then like all the textures and the shading looked like this. So the issue was that there was only like two shades that was like in the shadow or not in the shadow.
Yes.
And as we only had one directional light, we lost a lot of detail, especially on all the different normals of the mesh. So what we did was add an additional light that was casted from the top, so
From the
that
top.
it would, so it would give more detail to all the meshes, as you can see here.
Oh, I
It's
see. Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Is it more
It's like
ambient? Does this light cast shadows, or no? It just hits the.
No, it's only for the pieces,
Okay,
and only it doesn't cast shadows.
that's great.
Yeah, we found that was like really needed in order to give that extra detail.
Yeah, it was a shame that such beautiful models were like
Hiding.
They were hidden.
Exactly.
And it's a really smart solution for like faking ambient light almost. Having this just top down and only affecting the pieces, so it doesn't affect that nice ramp that you have on the characters.
Exactly. It's just like
Yeah.
really specific.
Yeah, that's very nice. So I guess you
Then
just use layers, right?
sorry.
Only affect the things tagged with a specific layer, which is the environment.
Yeah, it's-
all the environment pieces are on a layer or something like this.
Yeah, it's actually on the shader.
Oh, on the shader.
Because,
Okay,
like-
great.
Yeah. We like to have to put everything on each shader.
Yeah.
And also like we have a small amount, especially for like the terrain, the pieces, and the units, which I
Yeah.
will talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah. Another thing to talk about was the animations we have.
Mm.
Okay, so thing is, as the game will have lots of units at one time, especially horrors, that there will be lots and lots of horrors.
That's a lot of animations to render.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's lots of
Thing
models.
is-
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
all have
are
to be animated, and it was quite expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So what we tried to do was, what we did was to bake those animations into textures, and then we send those textures to the GPU. So the animations are actually played on the GPU rather than on the CPU, and then sent. So
So
for
is it like a
instance,
flip book of meshes, or like?
It's
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
it's,
more or
no,
less.
it's more of a vertex.
it's
shader,
a flip
right?
book of the positions that
Of the
the vertex need to take.
Yeah,
Got
it's
it.
fun to look at.
Yeah. Whoa.
It's like on the
Decode that.
x-axis,
Yeah.
are like each vertex of the model. It's like almost 2000, and then on the y-axis, sorry, are all the frames of all the animations.
I see, and it's saved as just a texture. This is like the atlas of the whole animation as it runs through. Nice.
And then we also had to implement a system so we could know and tell the shader which animations we're in. So like we have to tell it we start from the index 61 and the animation lasts for 26 frames.
Right. Because you
Also-
can't use the state machine for something like this, or the typical animation system. You have to create this system instead and be very
Exactly.
specific about it. Yeah, that's cool.
We had to make a new system. And it's also possible to write like events that we then propagate to maybe sound
And
or
trigger.
programming. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of mimic
can say
what the animator usually offers, but on this parallel workflow. Yeah.
Exactly. And that way we could have lots of animations just happening at the same time. And also keep the models like instanced, so they don't lose like instancing.
Okay.
Which is another thing that I want to talk about. And that's like how we managed to have so many types of pieces and different types of pieces, and basically not kill the GPU, which is important. So what we have is that we only have one material for all the pieces. And like every piece, even the citadel, shares the same material. And that material, it contains an atlas of all the colors that we use. And all that is like in a 16 by 16 texture.
All the colors you use for all the pieces, or throughout the entire?
For all the pieces.
Okay. In one texture, yeah. Just like,
Yeah. And then for each piece, we baked like into the model, we baked like what color maps to what triangle of each mesh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we can have like only one material across all the blocks of the game, all the pieces, even the buildings. So that means that everything can be batched together.
Yeah.
And that makes it so the information sent to the GPU is minimal.
Okay.
So it's like
so
yeah.
you'll do the actual texturing outside of Unity, but bring it in. But the way it's being applied to the objects is using this simplified texture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
And we had a question from the audience asking about the how you actually baked the animations. Was that done? Some asked, was this done in Houdini? I guess maybe it was done in like a Maya or Blender or one of these.
We actually like
program?
the animations were done like in Blender, I believe, or Maya.
Yeah.
And then we exported them to Unity,
Mhm.
like a basic animation. And then what we have is, not sure if I can load it here, but we have an animation maker scene.
Yeah, it's been a
Okay.
while since we used it, but
With breaks.
hopefully it
Fingers
will work.
crossed it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
So what we
blow
have
the
is
dust
like
off of it, off the scene.
exactly. So yeah, we have a tool where we can set like all the animation clips that we have on Classic Animator, Unity Animator. And then what we do is like to bake them all on a texture, we compute like for each frame of the animation, all the position of all the vertices. And all that we bake it to a texture using a compute shader. So it is all of that is actually done in editor.
Okay.
And from that we get the amazing texture. Because we join all the like we make a texture for each animation and then we join all the textures for each unit.
Yeah, that allows us to use like a traditional approach to make the animations, and then convert them to something efficient to use on the final game.
Yes. So there's no real limitations there. It's just the system of integration is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like some limitations. For example, for the size of the model, we don't really want to go over 4,096 vertices, and when we do, we split it in like 2 textures and do some tricky
Is
things.
it because of the texture size? You don't want it to be too large, or what is
Yeah.
the reason?
Yeah.
We don't want to go over certain values because from our experience with especially on mobile, large textures tend to not work that well. It's better to split it up on smaller textures.
Okay, and so you set a limit
Yeah.
to the texture size, and you just set that
Yeah,
as a rule for the
4K.
project. 4K, yeah.
Hmm.
That's fair.
Just to be sure.
Just to be safe as well. Yeah, you don't want to run into stuff and then have
Yeah.
to. Just from experience. Okay, cool.
Hmm.
That's amazing.
That's like the most important part for batching lots of units, so they are all animated at the same time without hurting a lot of performance.
Yeah.
And same with the pieces.
I think anyone who's built games on mobile thinks about this stuff especially, right? Because you've
Yeah, that's especially
Everyone's-
critical on mobile.
absolutely, yeah. Forces you to think this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's been like a few moments on the development where we thought on the tech side, well, on the tech side, we always try to, make the game work because that's our job.
Yeah.
But we always have like a healthy fight between design and tech.
Okay.
Where design wants more and wants to make things bigger and more enemies and more variety, and we try to make we try to make it work as well as possible, and
Yeah.
there's always been like a balance between that, and there's
That's
been
healthy.
a few instances when we thought that now that there's no way that's working. But then we tried and we
It's actually just
managed
fine.
to do it. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, see if the tech side was not being pushed by the design side, it wouldn't
Exactly,
happen. But
exactly.
then the tech side grounds the designers as well.
Yeah,
so you're
everyone
like-
needs to try to pull towards its direction. And
Yeah.
that's how you reach a balance, I think.
right.
I didn't know much about that like when I joined the Digital Sun, and it's really fun to see like how the middle ground is found. Like,
Yeah.
the best part for everyone. It's really nice.
That's awesome. That's the teamwork, right? And that's
Yeah,
something
exactly.
that's built from team chemistry over time, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. And just like I think a general respect and trust for decision making of people's like disciplines. Like trusting the designer. They are the designer, trusting their judgment and trying to work with it rather than fight against it. But then also having the designer trust the programmers and the technical person's knowledge on the project. And I think that's what I found from interviewing so many teams. The biggest thing is there's this with the successful games is there's always this trust between the team members and this admiration among each other, where each person is admiring the other person's role and no one is looking down at another person's discipline, and that creates always the best results. And that's something I see clearly amongst the successful teams. Yeah. So something we didn't talk about yet was the fake lights, and I was actually as I was playing the game, I was looking at like, maybe you talked about it with a top-down light, but I was looking at like the torches and the little glow that's created around the torches, but noticing it's not really casting shadows or something. I was curious what approach you took for things like this.
Yeah, I think we have two types of fake lights.
Okay.
I will explain what I think is the most interesting one. So I will load up the tutorial, the first level. It has a good example.
Which can be played on the demo on Steam, so we can show the viewers later.
You have to complete the simple steps first.
Yeah, tutorial and everything. I know I have like muscle memory for that tutorial.
For this tutorial, you've probably like walked through it a million times.
Tutorial speedrun.
Yeah.
I will say the tutorial does a really great job of like walking you through, because there's so many systems in this game.
Yeah.
It does a great job of like walking you through it while keeping things engaging, because you're learning about the story. You're basking in the beauty of the world as well, and you're like being introduced to mechanic after mechanic. It's really well done. Yeah,
it's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, so regarding fake lights, I will take one of the materials we use on a render pass. It's called the After Opaques. Okay, so I will review only the lights right now. Here we are.
Nice.
Okay, so what we have set up is like a little system.
Okay.
That I think has been iterated over time. So what we do with fake lights is that we bake we have a maximum of 50 fake lights per level, I think. And at the start of the level, when it's loading, we bake it all on a texture, which I can show real quick. Just have to open the frame debugger. Okay. So here's the fake lights texture. It's a bit small, but basically what it is for it's like tile or a group of tiles of the map. It encodes in the color component in the RGB and also the alpha the 4 closest lights at each point in the map, and that allows us to like get in shader the 4 closest light data that we have baked. So that means like with a relatively quick performance, more or less, we can fetch the light data and the color and also the distance for each position in the world. And of course, it's not done in the shader of all the materials, but it's done in a post process. It's like
so screen space,
that it's only done in screen space.
Okay.
Sorry. So it's ensured like it only happens like once per pixel.
So the lights are not actually ever, or some of the lights are not hitting the materials, or is this all the lights in the game?
Only these types of fake lights.
Only these types. Okay.
That are used like in concrete moments.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a mix between the lights that are affecting the materials and the environment, but then also some screen space lights.
Exactly. Which are like really cheap. So like they are used if I disable them and then enable them again, you can see that they are very subtle.
Yeah.
but they are quite used also to guide the player.
I see. Yeah.
Yes, that's like one interesting thing I wanted to talk about. I
Really like. Yeah, no, and I guess that's also what you're using on the torches and all of that, right? So
I think the torches have like another type of fade light.
Yeah, they have
Another
the other.
what's
fake
the
light.
other one?
Yeah, let me maybe drag. Okay, I got it. Drag it on the scene. So more visible. Yeah. So these ones are actually a mesh this time.
It's a mesh. Okay, got it.
It's like a sphere. Yeah.
With just a material on it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
This one is more simple. But of course, it doesn't have the same type of light blending that we can manage with the fake lights.
Yeah.
Because with the fake lights, we can like know each light that is close to its position. But this one is just more simple. Just a mesh and transparency.
Yeah, but also much cheaper. So that's why it's used on all the pieces that require a light source.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Performance is always the main goal here.
Yeah, it's mostly like actually just changing the color and the atmosphere of the environment over actually lighting something up so you can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was like how all the terrain is generated.
Okay.
Because as you've seen on the level editor, the terrain is only like some blocks, some voxels, up and down. Like the only information that is encoded is the height of its tile. So of course, there has to be more stuff processed after.
Yeah.
So what we have, first of all, the terrain is made out of chunks. And we have like different meshes. For instance, this would be the basic mesh for the ground, which is just like its tile and slopes.
All those complex slopes that I talk about.
Yeah.
Exactly. But of course, they don't blend very well. So what we have is a system on top of that that creates lots of meshes and joins them together for all the blending on the ramp. That they look so good.
To make it
in my
look more
opinion.
natural, some cliff edges,
It's
rocks.
Yeah, they're like going out and some going in.
Oh, okay.
So they blend very dynamically.
And how's it blending the material onto that as well? Like it's...
Yeah,
How do
I
you
think
make
it's
sure
just,
that the texture is blending?
Like the meshes in itself are just cutting here.
Oh, I see. They're the kind of separate pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But besides that, like we also have like we're blending on the terrain depending if it is like close to the mist and more other conditions.
Got it.
For all the terrain. And then after that, we have the dressings, we call them, and that's like all the trees and all the stone, and not the decorations, but like all the trees that are quite a lot of them.
And they
So
all have
for
a bit of
that-
a sway to them. I guess that's also a bit of a
Ah.
vertex.
Yeah, it's a very
Thing going on.
Animation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really calming.
It is so nice.
So for the dressing, we have. Oh, where did my cheats go? Here. We have like a really customizable. Like lots of scriptables. Where like we tell the generator like how many things in general we want to generate over some conditions. For instance, this one is only on the tiles that are marked as forest, as we did in the level editor. So, for instance, we can say like some type of tree has a lot of probability compared with the other ones to show. For instance, these green ones. And like we can also set the scale that they will generate. We can also set the position offset. This is like a really useful tool for artists to just design a whole biome by themselves.
Is this going to be available for the public level design tools as well, or?
It's complicated.
Sorry, put you under pressure there. Like,
It's
maybe,
fine.
maybe not.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, so this is really useful because like it offsets all the not the pressure but like the charts of the projects. That, like once this system is done, like as I said, an artist can just design a whole biome.
Yeah,
provided they have the meshes. And the fun thing about all this is that it's also used with an utility we have that draws like all the meshes with a draw mesh instance call. So all of the trees, which also share one material, are also drawn like in one pass, which improves performance a lot.
That's great. You're really like finding optimization like in every element, in every aspect of the game.
I find it fun personally.
Yeah.
But
make the most out of it. Yeah, that's great. And then I noticed also, like, you know, when you build in this game, there's paths, right? So you have to build a path from your lumber mill to the base, and from your oxygen system to your base. And whenever you do that, the environment actually changes. Like a decal appears on the ground. It's kind of dynamic, similar to how the flow fields are dynamic. There's like a dynamic decal that appears. How are you achieving that? Maybe we can show people what I'm talking about before we actually.
I will.
Yeah,
that's a really cool detail.
It's so cool. As I was playing, I was like, oh my god, like this city is evolving based off of like as I build it. It feels like time is passing.
Yeah. So once it loads.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the key things that we make to try to feel, try to make you feel like you are taming this
wild
alien land. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so each time you place a building that needs to be connected to the citadel, a path just appears.
Oh, nice.
And the fun thing is that it also avoids other structures, which is like really cool to see.
So cool. I didn't even realize that it avoids other structures. That's really nice.
Yeah, it even takes stairs into account.
Oh, wow. Oh my
so yeah,
God.
for the path, I believe we have every time a building is placed, first we calculate the path to the citadel, and once that is calculated, we bake the information of the path to a texture that has like the same size, well, a bit smaller, but the same size as the whole map. And then the terrain reads from that information.
It's just like a black and white texture where like simple like lines, things like this.
Yeah, I don't think I can preview it right now.
That's fine. Yeah.
But it's just black and white.
Yeah.
We have
If
to
it
say
draws
that
in the white, it drops the decal.
Yeah, I have to say that this thing in particular is really clever, because we already had to calculate the paths for structures.
Yeah.
Because you need to have a path to be able to use it. So we just take that information we already had, and we use it for something cool and beautiful.
You're recycling the system instead
Exactly.
of building it all from scratch again.
Exactly. That always feels super great.
And the texture like is what's the word, like tileable, right? And so
yeah,
then it just blends with the environment really nicely. How are you achieving that blend of like the seamless is the word I was looking for, sorry, the seamless blend?
Yeah, the terrain actually, like the shader has lots of layers processed into it, because we have like these little patches of dirt and the other type of dirt, and also it transitions towards the mist.
Yeah.
And we also have these types of paths and these small ones also.
the abandoned paths.
Random paths.
Yeah, abandoned paths.
So it's all blending together into one shader.
Exactly. The shader has like, it just computes everything.
Got it. So it takes it all into account, but also takes it populates more of this road tile where the paths are, based off of the
Yeah.
texture that's being generated as you build. Very nice.
Exactly.
Wow.
I think that's one of the things that makes the, like, your city when you build it, it looks more lively.
Yeah, it really does.
sure.
Speaking of liveliness, there's also the wind lines that are always there, and
Yeah.
the topography lines, and that's like a big element of the art style of this game. You even see it in the concept art, these beautiful little lines that are like give this hand-drawn feel to everything almost, and then sometimes you apply like a color shader to the lines, especially when it's in water. And how are you achieving this, like those
Yeah.
particle effects?
For the particles, we are like using this dresser system that I've talked. So the artist can also assign like, we want wind particles, and then also the leaves that are a bit small, but you can see over here.
Yeah, I see them.
So those are just like normal particles. Here they are. Oops. That are just like spawning all over the map. And well, the wind ones are trails, so you can extend. Like if you see them spawning, you can see how they grow, and then they disappear. So we're using
So
this
it's just a
particle system for this.
system that's built over the whole entire map.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And the same for the clouds,
Yeah.
or more or less.
Yeah. Here's one. They are hard to see sometimes.
Yeah. If you just increase the rate, maybe you'll just have wind lines everywhere.
Well, that's one of the fun things I like to do.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's just gonna be a hurricane.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. It's getting really windy now.
I really like
Yeah.
messing with particles.
It's so fun. It's just so fun.
Yeah. And then for the ones you mentioned, like colored on the mist, these ones are actually part of the overall mist. Like
Oh, it's part of the mist system. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the mist is actually like a plane, like some meshes. Here they are. So it has like a vertex formation again. It goes a bit up and down.
Okay.
And then we have lots of computations along, for instance, the depth. So the more depth there is when intersecting like the camera with the mesh, and then to the depth that is behind the mesh.
Like below.
So the more there is.
So it's just a
It's
flat
like,
plane, right? Great.
Yeah,
And then you're measuring from the plane down to the depths below to get the height.
exactly. To
Yeah.
calculate like the amount of mist that there is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
its density.
Okay.
We also have like, if let me reveal the map. There's also when there is like more deep mist, there's also an effect that it gets the objects that are behind and it tints them a little bit dark. So it's like a silhouette. It looks especially cool with things that are like below the mist, like these ones in the middle. So it's a bit eerie.
That's really cool.
We also have
I'm fascinated with these lines. I don't know why they're so mesmerizing.
Yeah, that's,
How are those being generated?
I think that's with a Voronoi texture.
Okay.
And it's
Got it.
like getting the steps of each.
Doing it like a
just
flip book?
Stepping it. No, it's just. I wonder if I could preview it. Yeah, but it's like a Voronoi noise texture that is being moved.
Okay.
And then we take the edges of like, if the texture goes from 0 to 1, we step it so like the lines from 0.25 to 0.26 have a color and the others don't,
Oh, I see.
more or less.
Got it.
That gives it that multiple layer effect.
And is this
Especially
done in a
that's on-
shader? Like in shader code or in shader graph? Or like what's
That's
the actual...
In shader
or is
code.
it- In shader code, nice.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
and especially fun to see when they join.
Yeah, it
Or the
really
textures
is.
are like really useful for this kind of viscosity material,
Yeah,
more or less.
that's true. It does give the fog a sort of like a viscous texture. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More or
I
less
think that
that's-
there's gizmos we didn't talk about. I think that you wanted to
Yeah.
to touch on. Yeah.
I think it's interesting
That's the
because
last
we have some gizmos. For instance, when you hover on the citadel, you can see the range where you can build in.
Mm-hmm.
Not in creative, of course, but in other modes.
Clear. It's clear, so it's important.
Yeah. And this one, I believe, let me check real quick. But I think it's also a decal. Yeah,
I think it is.
I've lost it. Here it is. Okay. Yeah, this one is also a decal, also made in shader. Just like doing everything in shader. And this one, like, it's a really big box that just projects from the top. So we can see what tiles the area spans over.
Mm-hmm.
It also has some custom stuff done, so it doesn't go below the mist.
Oh,
You
nice.
can see it above the mist.
Yeah. Is it like landing on the plane or something like this, or?
Yeah, we have the mist height is also baked. I'm not sure if it is baked into a texture or just we store the data. I think it's into a texture.
Okay.
So we can get the height of the mist at any point on the map.
Nice.
So here we know how to push it up so it's not hidden.
Yeah.
Besides that, we also have some gizmos like when you hover over a unit, you can see which tiles it reaches.
Yeah. Very useful, by the way.
Yeah.
When you're
Especially
playing,
the
you're
ones-
actually playing the game.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
the reachability, which is
Yeah.
like pretty complex on a 3D environment.
Yeah, especially like when you have walls.
Exactly.
You can see here that, of course, it can't reach across the wall. But it
But
has
if
like,
you make a hole in the wall,
Then you can.
exactly.
it shows like over here. It's like really useful. I think this is also a decal.
And these gizmos are they being generated like screen space, or what's the actual?
These ones are, I think, another big mesh
Okay.
that just projects and maps for each tile. Like it's done everything in that mesh. The only screen effects we have, I think, is the
lights.
the lights, also the silhouette for when you have selected a unity.
Oh,
So
true.
you can know
Yeah.
when it is behind some pieces. And also the outline when you select multiple pieces.
Nice.
There's a thing
Yeah.
that...
Yeah.
Oh, it's really fast.
No, go ahead.
Really interesting thing that I was looking at today. And that is when you have we have a really cool filter, which is the transparency filter,
You're right.
which...
Oh yeah, I
creates
use that
this-
actually.
Yeah, that's really cool, especially in really if you like make a tower
Complicated.
in order to
tower.
be able to see inside it. This is really useful because it shows the top block, well, the blocks that don't have other blocks on top of them.
Mhm.
So for instance, in here, it will show both of these tiles, but not these ones. So you can look
Mm.
through them.
Yeah,
But it's
that's
like-
useful because your characters can actually run into the stronghold and you can lose
Exactly.
track of them.
Yeah.
So to be able to see them is so useful.
It's
Yeah.
really useful.
Well,
Yeah.
You can make pretty much everything with a really complex pathfinding, as complex as you really want, and units can go inside everywhere they can reach. So you really, if you weren't able to see inside, you would lose track of units.
It's
And-
true. And then you'll be deterred from making cool, complicated structures.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can also be like through the transparency, which I think it's the coolest thing.
Oh, that's so nice. That's
So
very
you can
useful.
actually like build inside a tower.
Wow.
And for this,
But not
like
when
we,
it's not transparent, you can't.
exactly.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it even changes the function.
That's
Very
really useful. Yeah. So for this, we bake into a texture. We love baking into textures. We bake like each, like from each tile of the terrain and up until 128 blocks. Every time you place a block, there is a texture for each tile, which has like a bit mask for all the 128 possible heights. And that allows us to get like information about each position, whether it is occupied or it is empty.
Really cheap.
Okay. And we have a few questions from the chat I'd like to bring up before we wrap up. Some people are asking what UI framework are you using? I guess people are wondering if you're using the classic Unity UI or the UI
Yeah, we are
toolkit.
using the classic Unity UI.
Okay. Cool. People are also asking back to the animations. So this is a question from a little while ago from Piaga. Do all the NPCs of the same type share the same material for the animations, or do they each have individual materials?
Each have individual materials in this case, yeah.
In this case, each have individual.
So
Okay.
the archers, the horrors, each all have a different material.
Okay. Got it. And then yeah, no, that's pretty much it actually. So that's good. I guess a lot of them came up, but you already answered them as you were going through. So
Great.
you guys went into an amazing amount of detail. Thank you so much for this. This was incredible. Before we wrap, I always like to go into because obviously this was a super long journey for you guys. Huge game. Not even your first game, right? So wondering if you have any like piece of advice for anybody who's like trying to build their own game or trying to work in a team the size of your team, or just anything like tech art related, teamwork related, any piece of advice you have to share with the community. I'll do one for each of you. I'll start with you, Javier.
Yeah, well, the lesson I'll take from development of this game, I'd say that the thing I learned is that almost every problem has a solution if you're willing to make the right sacrifice for it. In terms of you may not do exactly what you want, but you can do something that feels exactly like you wanted it to feel. But internally, it does lots of trickery and avoids doing certain things.
So basically, you can achieve it. You just gotta push for it.
Kind of fake it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You have to think outside the box usually.
Definitely. And I mean, it's very clear. You've shown that. You're not just saying that. You've shown it today. So that's really cool. That's great advice. And Edre?
Yeah, I'll go in a similar line as happened. My advice will be to try and break stuff, because that's and jump into pools where you don't really see the bottom of. Try to fight the fear of the unknown, because that's the only way of really achieving new things. Jumping into a problem that and I also find it like really fun when you jump into a problem where you don't have a clear answer for, and you try to come up with a solution. It doesn't work. You need to look around it. And I think it's a great approach.
Yeah. So actually going for it, not being too afraid
Exactly.
to try things.
Exactly. You can always try and choose that it's not a good approach and scrap it, because we've done that lots of times. But the things that persist in the game, that succeed in the test of time, are the ones that are really worth it.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great advice. And last but not least, Manel.
unsure of which one, but I think I will go like for more beginners, I think. And I think it would be like to start small at the beginning and then scope up later in later projects. Like I think, at least for me, when I started making games on my own, I tended to have a too large scope and I tended to give up. But I think the starting small tip is one that really helps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and do you have an example of something that you went through and that you guys started small with that really helped you like evolve to the thing you needed?
I mean, I was talking like more in my personal sense.
Okay.
When I try to make games on my own.
I
But
see.
I always found that like if you think like way too big, especially when you're alone,
Yes.
it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I mean, when you look, I was actually thinking of that as you were showcasing this game, and I was like, this is such a massive game. Imagine making this as your first game. It would be quite the challenge. But you, as you said, this is not the start of your journey. This is like game. I don't know how many games you worked because you had the period where you were doing a bunch of smaller contract games, then Moonlighter, then Mage Seeker, and then you landed at Cataclismo. So this is all built up knowledge over time. So that's an amazing piece of advice, Manal. I think when people see something like this and it's their first time making a game, they feel the pressure like to make something this large. But yeah, starting small, starting with smaller projects, and then working your way up to this is the way to go.
I think it helps in the beginning.
Definitely. Thank you so much, guys. This was amazing. The amount of detail you went into is fantastic. It's going to be so useful for everyone in the community, and for everyone who's watching. This VOD will be up, so you can watch it. It's going to be up on our YouTube. Watch it anytime. Watch it at your own pace. Pause, rewind, rewatch different stuff, because there's a lot of information packed into this. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you to the community for all your questions and for joining us for all 2 hours of the stream. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.